Good evening. Would you stand with me for the invocation and pledge of allegiance, please?
John?
Heavenly Father, as we gather together here, we ask that you would, as you did with the forefathers, bless our efforts, give us guidance. Those that formed our nation, we know that they came to you to find out how men should live together and how they should be unified and how to form a more perfect union. And they appealed to your blessing, and Lord, we do likewise here. We ask that you'll be with the activities and the decisions of the evening. That's all we ask it all in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to call to order this regular session of the Vienna City Council for July the 28th, 2022. Let the record reflect that I've taken roll that all members of council are present this evening with the exception of Councilman Leach, who is out of town, and City Attorney Russell Skogstad. The first item on our agenda this evening is our public forum. We have one that is signed up to speak this evening, and that would be Mr. Robert Lockhart.
Ladies and gentlemen, for allowing me to be here today. My name is Robert Lockhart. I've been here in the city of Vienna for 25 years. I served honorably in the United States Marine Corps, and I was a letter carrier here in Vienna for 34 years. I just recently retired about less than 2 years ago. I'm currently a livestock chair for the Wood County 4-H and FFA. We recently just changed over from the Interstate Fair and Exposition over to the Wood County Fairgrounds, where we now currently are holding our exhibitions of animals and still projects. It's been a monotonous thing to move through, but we're glad to do it because it's for the kids. The reason why I'm here today is because on June the 29th, code enforcement approached me and cited me for a nuisance condition. We've been raising rabbits in the city of Vienna for 13 years, 2009. My daughter, who turned 9 at the time, would be considered a clover bud in the 4-H. We had to have some type of project. We own a farm in Ohio, but because of the stipulations in the city of Vienna, you can't have livestock. So we chose rabbits. There's no nothing citing anything about rabbits in the municipal code. At one time, we had over 111 rabbits in our rabbitry. We're now down to 24. We downsized quite a bit, and one of the reasons because my one daughter aged out, so she couldn't show animals anymore. My son went into sports and started working, so he wasn't able to show animals anymore. And my youngest daughter, who just turned 18, she's still got 3 years left. Not only do we do it for our children, we do it for the county, we do it for Ohio. We raise rabbits for them for meat. They're meat pens is what they're called. They show these 3 animals. I can give you an example here real quick. This is one of the kids that we just recently supported. Those are our rabbits, by the way. They take those 3 rabbits and they have to get them between 4 and 6 pounds. And if they're not between that, then they're not eligible for competition and championship or reserve championship. So it's an endeavor for these kids to work toward getting these animals where we need them to be, according to 4-H and agricultural standards. And then they are sold for market. Now, in the state of West Virginia, rabbits don't have to have a permit. I could at my house butcher 2,000 rabbits a year by state regulations and sell them to the supermarkets. I can sell them to farmers markets. I can take it to restaurants and all that. I can do all the packaging and everything myself at the house and not require any regulations, no permit. That's the only animal that you're allowed to do that with. The nuisance was because it was odorous. Well, the gentleman, when he came, didn't even know where the rabbits were at until we took him to them. He had to come in the presence of these rabbits in order to establish if there was even any smell there. He's not going to overcross the neighbors' yards because all of them have natural organic fertilizer in their gardens. They're coming to me and my wife and family and asking us, can we have a 5-gallon pail of it put in our garden? Can we have some put into our flower bed? So the neighborhood's got naturally organic fertilizer everywhere. Mr. Matheny's gardens over there, if you're familiar with 41st Street, every garden over there has it in it because they've come and asked me to put it there, or they've come and got it themselves. And so he's not going to any of the other neighbors and say, okay, well, I smell a rabbit when they're way over here. He had to actually go into the presence of the animals in order to smell it. Now, I was curious as to why, after 13 years, all of a sudden, I'm being issued a citation for these rabbits. Well, this morning, by coincidence, it come across my wife's phone, a YouTube presentation of a lady that stood just right here, asking that there be allowed to be hens, a certain amount of hens. Well, that clicked with me right there. Well, now I know what, possibly the reason that now all of a sudden I'm getting a citation, because if they eliminate me, then there's no possibility of us bringing hens into this town. I'm for it. I think the city of Vienna actually should probably provide a place for people to raise animals if they need to. With the COVID and everything happened here recently, we need a place to sustain ourselves. You can get eggs every day from chickens. You can use the chickens as your dinner or your lunch or a chicken sandwich or maybe some nuggets. I don't know, but I feel that it's necessary to sustain ourselves. Now, I want to show you a couple more pictures here, if you don't mind. This is my family here. This is at the summer showcase just this last week. We finished up on Sunday. Okay, this is the picture backdrop. Here's my daughter. She's an FFA. And by the way, she's the FFA president of Wood County Blennerhassett Association, living in the middle of Vienna. She's an FFA president. And my daughter Lane was the past president before my daughter Jordan took over. And there's Lane, both past presidents of FFA, living in the city of Vienna. Okay, I think that's very important because most FFA presidents come from rural areas, not from the middle of Vienna. Here's my daughter Jordan showing her hog, which we keep at Parkersburg South. Allows us to keep hogs and lambs at the FFA facility behind Parkersburg South that we helped build, my wife and I and the kids. Poured concrete, put up the gates, set it all up. So you can go there right now and there's a hog and lamb that's getting ready to go to state fair that we're raising at Parkersburg South. Now, my wife and I received awards from the FFA for trying to improve the agricultural production in the state, to try to help inner city kids have something else to do other than everything else that they're doing that they're not supposed to be doing around here. We want to keep them involved. I can show you pictures of kids. There's a picture of the FFA. All three of my kids were in FFA. My son was the parliamentarian. Couldn't think of it. So here's a church organization. We can't hardly see it, but we do. We did a church organization. We do petting zoos. We've done it for the local police department. We've done it for the high rises. We've done it for the senior homes. We've done it for several organizations. Neil School. We bring our animals in here to show the kids that there's more to life than just running around the street playing on your video games. There's one of our hogs in the back of the trailer at the church.
Mr. Lockhart, you're allowed 5 minutes. You've exceeded your 5 minutes,
Okay,
sir.
thank you.
Mayor, if we could, is there any possible that we could allow a few, 3 or 4 extra minutes? I'm interested in this situation. Pardon me?
Make a motion to extend the time.
Bob, how much, what do you got
2
left?
more minutes, I just want to show the pictures how well,
2 more minutes, Bob, is that what you're asking?
that'll be fine.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Here's some of the smiling faces of the kids that we have at our program showing rabbits. Here's my daughter demonstrating the rabbit, how to present a rabbit, because you're judged on how the rabbit looks. I mean, you go over the whole thing. This is a picture of the rabbit pens at our house. It's just set up exact same way that it's done at the fair. Exact same way, no different. Here's a picture of my neighbor's beautiful yard with all their flowers grown with naturally organic fertilizer. There's the back of my house. This shed, or I call it a cover, which we're required by law to give to animals, is right behind my house with the pool. Here's some more pictures of, you can see it, of the pens. Okay. I got several up here. Here's my daughter showing a lamb. We show lambs, we show goats, we show hogs. There's more. Here's all the kids in the barn for the rabbit show. They're not out running the streets, taking care of animals, which is a full-time job. You gotta be there in the morning, you gotta be there at night, you gotta take care of them in the day. Several reasons why I feel it's important that we continue this endeavor and to keep the kids interested. So I thank you for your time and have a good day.
The minutes from the July 14th, 2022 council meeting have been printed, posted, and circulated. Are there any corrections to the minutes? There were 2 misspellings in the names of some of the people. Melissa's going to correct those names for the spelling. Other than that, they'll stand approved as posted. First item on our agenda this evening is under unfinished business. We have a ordinance on second reading, amending and supplementing the ordinances of the City of Vienna building standards and codes codified as Section 1721, known as the State Building Code. This ordinance incorporates the changes to the West Virginia State Building Codes promulgated by the West Virginia State Fire Commission and established by legislative rule as set out on Title 87, Series 4 of the West Virginia Code of State Rules. I'll entertain a motion on second reading for the approval of the amending and supplementing our ordinance to comply with the building standards and codes currently known as the State Building Code.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve on second reading the ordinance amending and supplementing the ordinances of the City of Vienna building standards and codes codified as Section 1721. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. First item this evening under the new business is a resolution to accept the proceeds from the sale of a fire truck and to direct that they be applied to the purchase of a custom 1,500 gallon per minute fire department pumper truck. Be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of Vienna that it hereby accepts the proceeds from the sale of a Vienna Volunteer Fire Department titled fire truck in the amount of $120,000 and orders and directs that the proceeds be applied to the purchase of a custom 1,500 gallon per minute fire department pumper truck. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the resolution.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution. Steve, I know that you're here this evening. That pumper truck was sold to the city of Ripley, and the $120,000 would go to continue the down payment against the new truck, which we have on order. By applying this money to that, our amount of deposit goes in, and we gain interest on every dollar that we've put against that truck. And so it continues to lower the actual cost
You get a discount.
I'm sorry?
You get a discount at the end of that due to the interest that's charged.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the resolution to accept the proceeds from the sale of a fire truck and to direct that they be applied to the purchase of a custom 1,500 gallon per minute fire department pumper truck. All those in favor, please signify by your right hand, raising your right hand. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Steve, thank you. I did speak with Ripley Fire Department last night. They're very, very happy with the truck, and so when you get your new one, I'm sure you'll be happy too. Second item this evening on our agenda is a resolution selecting the location of a proposed kayak launch. This is a resolution selecting the location of a proposed kayak launch. Be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of Vienna that it hereby selects either A, the parcel of property located at 12th Street in Vienna, or the location at Spencer's Landing in Vienna for the future site of a proposed kayak launch. Because there is a decision to be made this evening so that we can move forward with the plans and the future construction of this. First item, what is identified as number 1 is the parcel at 12th Street. Item number 2 is the parcel at Spencer's Landing. So what we're going to do then, all those in favor of location number 1, 12th Street in Vienna, please signify by raising your right
Are
hand.
we having any discussion about it?
Oh, we can. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yes. You want me to do, would you like, since it's a choice, you want me to do it in the form of a motion? Because you're going to have to pick one or the other.
Can I ask a question? I mean, I feel a little bit of a disadvantage the way this agenda is set up because it would be helpful, at least for me, to have the presentation first. That's, you know what I'm saying? Spencer's Landing, the 12th Street concept design presentation. Then I think I'd have a better understanding of which is the better choice of location. If it's possible, which, you know, I can make a motion to switch that so we can do the presentation first. And then we can come back and decide which is the best location. For the
Well,
planning
let's do
board.
this, Kim. Okay, we'll try to make it easy. We'll open the floor for discussion. You've obviously got a question of what, the description of 12th Street and the description of Spencer Landing, or what would you like to know?
I don't necessarily have a question. On the agenda is a presentation of Spencer's Landing and 12th Street concept design. So depending, I've not seen those designs yet, and I'm looking forward to seeing them. And I think that would help us have a better informed decision on where the kayak launch should go.
I have no problem moving it to the end. It's irrelevant. Whatever you want. Yes, sir, Roger.
Kind of, if you don't mind, briefly, if we can just go back for a little bit, because it's been a while since this project has been discussed. I'm a little bit unclear on if someone could help me on what prompted us to entertain the move of the kayak landing to 12th Street.
Okay, you may have been gone, and
I was gone, yes.
Okay, I mean, we did discuss this, and I'm sorry. We did a study where we brought in some experts on kayaks. The Spencer's Landing location is pretty much right in the Ohio River, all right? Because of the way the current flows right there, it's relatively fast. And the way that the Spencer's Landing property is when you go, it drops off really steep, and then you level out into the river. All right. So at that time, there was some concern about, because it's going to be a handicap launch, there was some safety issues of whether or not, because the river flows so fast right there, that possibly at the 12th Street location. Now, the 12th Street location is right behind the sewer plant. And if you go right straight down 12th Street, you would be right in where the kayak launch would be. When we got the kayak people in here, they determined that because it's almost right behind the point of the island, that the current's much slower right there, that you could get in your boats and out into current much easier. And for novice kayakers that are learning to use a kayak, it would be much safer. So that was one of the concerns. The second one was the slope at 12th Street is so much more gradual than what it is at Spencer's Landing.
The land slope you're
Oh, yeah.
speaking of.
The construction of the walkway going down for handicap access would be much more accessible for people in wheelchairs or whatever. And so at that point, I reached out to the Corps of Engineers and, the people that gave us the grant for the flap grant and asked if it could be moved down to the 12th Street location. Then I contacted the state, who's now our contact for the administration of the funding, and they both agreed that it didn't make any difference to them, that both sites were approved. And so at that point, it simply became a choice now is, does city council want to see the kayak launch built at Spencer's Landing where we were originally approved for the flap grant? Or if we move it to 12th Street, which has some benefits, that's the choice. But we need to make a choice so that we can proceed with it. Craig, did I miss anything? Okay.
Well, I think Spencer's Landing, when this first came about, I thought Spencer's Landing was the perfect place for that, and it kind of started a launch, in my opinion, into getting that area up and running and having activities there. But also, I guess I am concerned about the safety issues of the land and the water. So, okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. So we go back to Kim's question. I don't care. If you all would like to wait until Chris gets done, he's probably got some pictures that can show things. All right.
I was going to say, it might help clarify some things for people if I can present that.
Okay. So, that's fine. And if there are no objections, then we'll move item number 2 to the bottom and do it as the last item. Well, I actually, as far as, does it make any, we can move it to after item number 3 because it'll be fresh in everybody's mind once Chris gets done. All right. So we'll move item number 2 past item number 3 and we'll do it then. All right. So we'll move on to item 3 this evening, and that is a presentation on Spencer's Landing and the 12th Street concept designs. As you all are aware, Chris is an architectural engineer. And so I asked Chris if he would take all the suggestions that we have gotten from all of our meetings and all of the surveys that we've done and take the major items that were put forth and draw us a picture, if he can, of what it would look like if we take those items and we place them at Spencer's Landing. So, Chris, it's yours.
All right. So, yeah, I have kind of worked to look at Spencer's Landing, and as the mayor said, we have definitely done a lot of background and trying to gather some information on what folks actually want here, what could go here, what some of the challenges might be for this. So this is just kind of a quick synopsis of Spencer's Landing. In tandem with this, I felt it appropriate to talk about the 12th Street property as well, because they both kind of overlap each other and how they can be used and what we might want to consider using those spaces for. It's definitely promising that we were able to kind of reclaim that property down on 12th Street and gain some extra land and stuff down there. So I kind of looked at both of those sites and what could potentially be there based on the interests that people have there. So as you can see, there is a huge survey that went out in December with 151 results with all sorts of different things. And so in my designs, kind of on the left there, you can see what I'm sort of proposing for Spencer's Landing, and then I'll go into some imagery to kind of show what that looks like. But I've kind of compressed all of that information down into about 8 to 10 really important things that came up multiple times, either from that survey or from some of the conversations that the mayor said he had with people, and has kind of shared that with me. So there's a lot of opportunity there at Spencer's Landing, and I think we should definitely kind of take a look at that and see how that site can work with 12th Street. So I've kind of condensed that down into a walking and biking trail, botanical garden space with potentially using greenhouses. That area could be used year-round for growing crops or flowers or local things. An amphitheater space with a green lawn to seat about 5,500 people. Based on the space down there, it's almost, it's 17 and a quarter acres. There's plenty of space down there. So something like the Freedom Festival could be held on a green lawn instead of in a hot parking lot. A food truck and market area that we can have hookups for food trucks for local events, or farmers markets or anything like that, with some actual green space to sit out and eat and enjoy those, food trucks. Fishing and boating docks, we can look at how far we want to take that, whether those are just kind of piers that people can go fish from, or whether we want to actually put docks that people can come and hook up their boats to and actually come up to the park. So some of this stuff is still kind of in play as far as how far we want to take some of these ideas. So a game lawn with some volleyball courts and just like outdoor events, an event shelter, and picnic shelters. So you'll kind of see all of these things when I get to the actual plan. I just briefly wanted to show kind of what's existing there now. So you can kind of see that existing parking lot, the location of the Gold Star Memorial. And one of the things I wanted to point out was, because this land was reclaimed and we had to do some reclamation to some of the land, there's some areas there that we shouldn't disturb if we don't have to, so that we don't have to go through a bunch of hoops and EPA regulations on some of the work that we're doing. So I've just kind of highlighted those based on the final results that we got after getting approval, and everything was kind of cleaned up and covered up down there. So you can kind of see those areas, do not disturb areas.
Can you point it out on the screen, like with your finger? It's a little bit hard to.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yeah. So I think the Gold Star Memorial is actually over top of one of those. So that area there was kind of filled in. The whole parking area is technically under that do not disturb area. It doesn't mean that work can't be done in those locations, but if we do start to do work, then we have to kind of figure out kind of how to do that. There's a small area over where the trees used to be, kind of on the very north side of the lot. There's an area kind of right down in here that I think is kind of, if you go down there and look at it, you'll see it's kind of filled in dirt, so there's kind of a hill and stuff in that location. There's a small area kind of extending out off of the parking lot, and then there's a small area up by that oil derrick. So those are some of the areas that, I tried to avoid in this actual design, and looking at that space, making sure that we don't sort of have to dig into that dirt as little as possible. So this was kind of the final concept design that I have worked up, and I'll kind of very briefly go through this with you. So as you can see, this was kind of the location that made sense for an amphitheater for a lot of reasons. One, it can be oriented so that the sun isn't blasting in either the audience's face or the concert venue, whoever's actually playing the music or whatever's going on there. We can kind of work to orient that the right way to keep sun out of everyone's eyes and make it an enjoyable space. And so ultimately that would kind of be just an open green area that can be used for seating and lawn chairs and, other special events and things. And then you can kind of see that half-a-mile loop that goes all the way around through. So we talked about making that about a 10 to 12 foot wide path so that bikes or walkers or rollerbladers or, whatever can actually use that space and kind of go in both directions. And then we can kind of figure out exactly, if it's exactly a half a mile. That way, when people are walking or running or whatever, they can get the exercise and kind of keep track of how far they're going, So one of the other things over there is kind of a small dock that can come off. That's kind of maybe more of a private, smaller fishing dock or viewing dock. And then the larger dock at the other side made sense to become a larger dock that if we wanted to go with, having people being able to actually dock their boats to or something, because it's just a lot closer to sort of the central space that's there. So the food truck area and kind of market space ended up making sense kind of where there's already paving. We can definitely kind of come back and fill and put dirt over top of that. There's no reason you can't add to that. And then just kind of repaving that area and having food trucks kind of circle around that space with a central space there for people to either host events or kind of sit with picnic tables and stuff and be able to get closer access to those food trucks. Beside that food truck area is kind of a larger sort of outdoor event shelter or picnic shelter. So if you're having, your family reunions or your birthday parties and you want to have more than 20 people there, that kind of shelter can be made into that space and rented out, or we could rent that out for different events. And then right beside that, it definitely makes sense to have restrooms and stuff, especially next to the food trucks and everything, if people are going to be eating and drinking. And that's also kind of the area where water and sewer and stuff are going to have to come into the site, so it made sense to kind of plop a restroom down right there as well. Kind of working around the site, making a small kind of botanical garden with some maybe smaller walking paths that are more kind of quiet, and maybe not as wide, like 3 to 5 feet wide. Kind of, they can even be dirt or gravel paths and stuff, and kind of filling that area in with landscaping. And I think that could be a really great opportunity for all age groups, whether it's younger students who want to come and learn about local flora and fauna and the river and the history and all of that stuff could definitely be down there as part of like science and STEAM classes. And then, having seniors come and tend the gardens or walk through that space, and it kind of being a very calm and peaceful place to kind of get away from all of the other events and activities. In that central area there, I was looking at kind of a playground with either some water features or, as far as how far we want to develop that playground, we can definitely look at that. But then it made sense to kind of put picnic shelters around that. So if you're having smaller events or smaller gatherings at those picnic shelters, the kids are still close by and they can run over to the playground and you can still see them, and those two spaces kind of interact well together. And so I guess a couple of the other things to point out, maybe I think it made sense to have sort of a game lawn and stuff on that side. We can, do bocce ball courts or horseshoe pits, or any of those kind of outdoor events that we can kind of set up and orchestrate in that side of the property. And then one of the things I kind of threw out, because the parking lot is so open and exposed and gets hit by the sun, I think it could be a really unique opportunity for the city to look at kind of solar panel canopies there that could shade that parking lot. You could even probably power the entire property based on, the square footage of the solar panels that we could put there. And it also provides shade to the cars and stuff there, so you don't have to get into a really hot car that's been baking in the sun for hours. So that's kind of my idea for Spencer's Landing. The goal here is to make this more of a kind of leisurely recreational space. So not a lot of high intensity, super active, like sports and things like that, but more of a place to come out and have picnics and kind of enjoy those spaces. In quieter settings, obviously when a concert's going on, it's going to be a little bit noisier than that, but it could definitely be a really great space, I think. So I will continue on, and then we can kind of come back if you guys have any questions or thoughts or anything on it. But it made sense to look at the 12th Street property in tandem with this, because I kind of understand the need for the kayak launch and potentially either a boat launch or at least boat docks, and having access to that, and the lower currents and the lower speed of the river there and kind of the slope of the site down to the river makes a lot more sense. And kind of looking at that site and overlaying, I know we have a big need for outdoor recreation for youth. So whether we look at doing soccer fields or baseball fields, we could kind of interchange those, but I just kind of laid out some fields so we could see about how much space is down there. It's actually a pretty big space. So, I had a few under 8 U6 to U8 soccer fields, a couple of U8 to U10, and even a U12 soccer field. Obviously, those can be kind of moved around or shifted based on, what age group we're targeting there, but you can kind of see how many fields we could actually fit into that space with a little bit of grading and kind of finishing of the land there. So I kind of see this as more of the high energy, active, recreational place where people come in to go get wet and get in the river and, bring their bike and kind of play around on the bike pump track, or have, other soccer or volleyball courts or sand volleyball. So that's kind of more of a high energy, high use recreational activity space. And I think that, both of these properties put together hits the nail on just about everything that was asked for in the surveys that we've got a lot of the responses for. And so I think we should definitely look at both of these kind of together and kind of look at developing a full plan that has both of these involved. And this is what I was able to come up with in my evenings and weekends. So,
Chris, if you would, in your proposed design, can you kind of show where the proposed kayak launch would be relative to what you've got on the screen?
yeah, so Craig has kind of come up with a sketch when we submitted to get permits for down there to get approval to possibly build down there if we wanted to. And so I kind of just copied his drawing and used it in here. It literally will come straight off of 12th Street, so you can kind of see it here. Where they would we'd have to build some kind of a ramp to get down to the river, and then the kayak launch would be kind of right up here on that north side of the property, which really could work well. I know, I think Chad came and talked a few city council meetings ago about the possibility of looking at the Pritt property right adjacent to it and the boat dock, and there's a lot of opportunity there for access to the river. So I think that's definitely, it makes sense to put the kayak launch there for sure.
It's not, the way the street extends, is that the Pritt ramp right beside it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that kind of gray area is.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I also forgot about this slide. I kind of gave some precedent imagery, just some things to look at for other areas that have done this or have riverfront areas. So, you can see some of the awesome amphitheater spaces that could, potentially be built down here, or some of those food truck spaces, some of the gardens and kind of bike paths and stuff that we could look at to really activate these two areas that the city owns. I think it's a really awesome opportunity.
I have a question. Can we go back to the 12th Street to the kayak launch?
Yeah.
First of all, I want to compliment you for putting, such a phenomenal thing that you did. And I think looking at those properties in tandem together is really important. I think that's key to what's happening here. But so my question is, the shoreline, I see that where the kayak launch is and the shoreline, the trees are still going to be there, and that the parking is set back from that somewhat.
Yeah, because this is a concept that's not like 100% accurate.
Right.
But yeah, the goal would be to try and leave as much of the landscape there as possible.
The reason I ask about that specifically is that some of us go down there. It's really peaceful down there, right? Where Neal Island is. It's a really cool location, and so that gives people an opportunity to be down there in nature, and you get the trees, and where it just doesn't get torn out. Okay, we're going to put a bunch of concrete for parking.
Yeah.
So I just want to, I think the idea of the kayak launch being on 12th Street's much better for what the mayor mentioned. Safety, first priority. It's just a super nice spot down there. But back on the Spencer's Landing side, when you have the boat dock, that's just a boat dock. So people could come in off the river, they're just on the river, and they can just tie off, come up, enjoy the park. But we're not talking about being able to launch boats from there.
No.
Because I think that's really challenging. Our Spencer's Landing is really
Yeah,
challenging.
with the grade there and
Yeah.
trying to get a ramp down from the parking, you'd probably have a ramp from the parking lot all the way down because it's a pretty steep drop off there.
Yeah, and that just takes up so much valuable real estate. But I like the idea that people can come in off the river.
Yeah, there's still access, but you just can't put your boat in
Yeah.
the water from here.
Very good. Thank you.
Christie, your presentation, I'm assuming that you've got it in some form that we can look at it at length.
Yes, I will send it to everyone and I'll share it for sure.
Okay. Well, thank you. Appreciate you doing all that.
Yeah.
So I think for the next 5 minutes, we're going to take a break and we'll be back at 6:45. All right?